3D anime girl technology is simply amazing in our day and age. And that's why I've made it my mission to reverse engineer how these beautiful virtual women are made, one part at a time, using professional models from different games. Our knockoffs have been, let's just say, passable enough, and today we're focusing on the body part that gets most of the eye contact. The face, of course, and this is what our imitation will look like. Achieved by grabbing free models from the 3D anime gacha games as references, analyzing every single fine detail in these models, and of course reverse engineering an easy way to do it so that even we can start making these things in our own basements. So here are the most important details when creating those pretty or handsome 3D anime faces. The face's edges follow the shape of the face so that the silhouette is flawlessly maintained from all angles. The mouth uses a circular loop, which not only makes it easy to add loop cuts during the modeling process, but creates the lip structure and defines the lip outline. Manually cut triangles are used to efficiently transition from high to low detail areas, such as when going to the neck or the forehead. Triangles are an extension of the modeler's sheer willpower to pursue aesthetics by any means necessary, and they are powerful enough to break through the often parroted but incorrect dogma that quads must be used in 100% of cases. The nose has this nice flow, which gives enough definition for the minimal bridge, and transitions into the brow ridge area. Ears can have the folds modeled, but are often simplified by just putting the details into the texture itself, and all the smaller eye details such as the lashes, the brows, and the iris are modeled all separately from the face. Now that's great and all, but where do we even begin with this? Fortunately, using my trusty SpongeBob tech, I found the basic shape that we can use as a starting point to go from this to this with just a few simple steps. So let's get that going, but as always, a couple things we should never forget. One being your references. Today I'll be using Han Ying's newer model from PGR as the base reference because she's hot, and Rose from the upcoming game Silver Palace as our final target. And then there's a couple things besides ourselves that have to be turned on.
What did he say?
Namely the loop tools and auto mirror add-ons, which are already in Blender. You just have to tick to enable them. In, edit, preferences, add-ons, loop tools, and auto mirror. Alright, let's do this. So here in Blender, press Y for facing U and add a plane to the scene, setting its X rotation to 90. Tab over to edit mode and apply an auto mirror with the default settings. Then over on the side view, let's move this middle row about that much forward. Now let's create a loop cut going like this. Going back to the side view, let's select these two vertices at the bottom and scale them down along the y-axis to about this size. Now let's create two loop cuts from top to bottom. And from the top view, let's move those and give ourselves a nice curve like this. Now select these three vertices and move them inwards along the x-axis and create two loop cuts on the top half and three loop cuts on the bottom half. Now by pressing 3 to enter face select mode, select this face at the bottom left and delete vertices. Press 1 to go back to vertex select mode and select these three verts and create a face there by pressing F. Then in edge select mode, select this edge and create another face. Nice, now we have this shield shape, which is the base shape for our face, and it will ensure that we have some nice edge flow on the chin area. We just gotta make a few tweaks. Let's make it a little more narrow by scaling it down on the x-axis and moving it a little inwards. Then angling the top half just a tiny bit by rotating it. Let's do some sculpt tweaking by entering sculpt mode and getting that contour of the chin area. And let's look over to the side so that we can get the chin contour from the side as well. Now while we're here, let's take this one point, grab it, and move it out like this to create the nose area. I'll move the point above it in slightly to create that indent around the nose bridge area. Now over on my modifiers, I'll add a subdivision surface modifier. And in edge select mode, I'll select these 5 edges. Press Shift E and drag to the right to make those points defined. I'll enter face select mode, select these two faces at the bottom here and do the same for that. I'm now going to apply shade smooth by selecting all of it, Finding it in my search menu. Now back in sculpt mode, let's make some sculpt tweaks while we have the subdivision and it's not applied yet. Tweaking it like this will be done throughout the entire process. Now while we don't have the subdivision applied yet, we can only make minor tweaks, but it's good to get it started in this phase. So I'm gonna jut out the cheeks a little bit because they need some meat in them. Editor, leave out the last half of that sentence. Indent the eye holes a little bit, push in the nose bridge, and jut out the forehead just a little bit. Once you're happy with the current step, we're going to be moving on and applying all the modifiers. So apply the mirror, apply the subdivision, then reapply the auto mirror. Now select everything and do Shift E -1, enter, to get rid of those crease lines that we made before we applied the subdivision. Now some of these areas do look a little messed up. We can easily use our edge slide to get everything aligned back up. Now important step, see where this triangle is? In the middle of it, we're going to create these cuts. So get your knife tool, cut from here to here, and from that same starting point from here to here. Press enter to confirm, and that's all it takes to start the mouth area. Now we're gonna have to zoom in for this next part so you can see it. We're gonna create a loop cut on this triangle and slide that point we just added towards the lips. Then we're gonna select these two verts and press V to do an edge split to open up that mouth. Now because of that point we added, we can do circular loop cuts in this area to create detail in the middle of the lips, pushing it out along the y-axis. Now these lips are a little wide, so we're going to toggle on proportional editing and scale them down using our scroll wheel to adjust the area of the proportional edit and move it more towards the middle so that it gets a little smaller. Some more tweaks. Let's move the mouth up a bit too and smooth out these loops. Then let's make another cut in this area. This will give us some topology around the nose, and it will help with the nose to brow ridge edge flow later. Now do a little shaping on the nose if you want, and then let's move on to the eyes by selecting these 2 points, which are going to open up our eye sockets. That looks absolutely terrifying, so let's fix that. Use the relax function that can be found in your loop tools in the edit tab on your right. Now scale this loop along the y-axis, shrinking it to about this size, maybe even smaller, and then move it closer towards the nose bridge. From the front, move it slightly inward as well towards the nose bridge. Then shape your anime styled eyes how you want, usually the outer corner poking out and the inner corners going narrower. Now this area will need some retopology. This is important. All you gotta do is cut down from here to here, then 2 more cuts. One from here to here, and one from here to here. Then in edge select mode, you can select these 2 edges, delete, dissolve edges. Now this part will almost guaranteed need a tweak. See how the sockets are bulging out from the 3/4 angle? We need to smooth those down, push out the cheeks a little more from this 3/4 angle, and adjust it a little more from the side like so. Back to the 3/4 angle, let's move the forehead forward a little more. Now if you've been following the previous tutorials in this series, we really only do 1 subdivision, but for the face we're gonna do a 2nd subdivision. That's right. This might raise some questions, but just trust the process for now. So I've once again added a subdivision surface modifier to our mesh, and I'm gonna select the entire middle edge and these 3 following edges using edge select mode. So these 2 on the lips and this one on the nose, so that when we do the Shift E drag, we once again keep those sharp edges where we need them. Now let's apply those modifiers again. Apply the mirror, apply the subdivision. Similar to last time, select everything and do Shift E -1 enter to get rid of those creases. Now this density might be okay for your project. I'm gonna trim mine down a little by dissolving a few edges and edge sliding to even the spaces out. Doing so preserves some smoothness from the subdivision while not fully doubling the amount of edges. For these weird quad areas created by the triangle, I just merge it all the way down. We'll do the one on top as well if you need another example. So there I've merged it down. Here on top there was a triangle, so I select these 3, merge at center, then select these 3, merge at center. So that's a good amount of vertices for the eye loop. Now let's continue with some more dissolving. These are the edges that I chose to dissolve. This on the side of the head and the middle. Then slide to fill in the new spaces. One here that's slightly under the nose. Slide in place. One here on the side of the head. Slide in place. And a few off the forehead because this part doesn't need a lot of detail. In fact, we'll do some merging here as follows. Merging into triangles and then moving those in a little. And let's do a couple more, which I slightly adjusted earlier. I just made them merge 1 point higher, just so I keep a little more detail in the brow ridge area. Now here on the mouth, I'm going to add a loop cut for my mouth outline, for those of you that like using this method. So after cutting it, move it in place a little bit, then select these loops, add a new material for now, pick a dark color and then assign these to the new material. Next, I'm going to create the eye holes by extruding them into the face. So here it is from the back. I just extrude, scale it up a bit, extrude again and merge the new extrusion at center, creating that middle joining point and closing up the eye socket hole. Then I'm just going to add another temporary material. This time I'm going to make it white. The end product will obviously use a texture, but just for now, just for blocking things out and getting a visual, this is what I do. Next, we're going to create the eyelashes. So add another plane to the scene, and I'm going to breeze through this because I've made a video on it before, and the method hasn't changed all that much. We slowly add cuts to this plane and move it up into the face mesh. Let's loop cut it through the middle twice and push those outward a little to create that 3D lash effect. Let's continue to add cuts to create a curve. And commonly on the inner side of the lash, we'll have two pointy ends, like so. And we can either shrink the ends or join them. I'll get the lash verts as close to the head mesh as I can. Then I'll play with the rotation of these edges so that it has a nicer curve. Extrude the outer lash and join it at the end for that sharp cat eye end. Then I'll extrude downwards from the bottom face beside it, creating the side of the eyelash that goes around this corner of the socket. Manually align that from the side and the front. Then I'll add a couple of loop cuts to the outer lash and curve it out a little bit. Then let's close it up from behind so it's a closed structure, allowing you to use inverted hull with it if you want. Let's create the brow by duplicating the top row of the eyelash, shape it how we want it, then extrude it once. Then let's create the iris of the eye by adding a circle, extruding and scaling inwards. I'll do one extrusion for the outer line, one for the middle of the iris, and one for the inner circle, which I just merge at the center. Then again, I'll create some new materials so that I can play around with the colors. Let's add the upper dark iris color for now. Then let's push the middle verts inwards and do one extrude backward. I'll add my mirror now and place the eye in socket, slightly angling, slightly facing outwards and downward. If this looks cursed right now, that's because it is. A big tweaking phase is coming soon. Let's close this out by duplicating the brow edge so that we can make the eyelid crease. Just like the other parts, let's move it close to the head mesh. For bottom lashes, I actually extruded out of the bottom of the eye socket. And to prepare for our sculpting, let's join everything into one object. If the mirror modifiers give you trouble, switch the order in which you select the objects before you join them. Okay, real quick, two important things at this point. One, if you had trouble at certain parts of this tutorial or just want a file to compare to at different stages, including the finished head meshes of today's tutorial, I have a $5 tier on Patreon, which has exactly that, plus similar files for the body and feet are here as well. Still available for a limited time because I keep them as rewards for about 30 days. So all of these for $5 if you act fast after this is uploaded. The other thing I need to mention is just like when we made our body mesh, creating the base face mesh is literally just the canvas. So I provided you with a solid foundation that has the topology features used in this kind of model, but now you have to slowly sculpt and transform this mesh into the art style that you want. And it's not as easy for me to handhold you for that part. Your references are your best friend at this point in time. So here's what I observed from my reference. Red Rose has reptilian pupils. Her eye spacing is either standard one eye apart or a slightly bigger gap. The inner corners of the eyes get closer pretty sharply, and she seems to have some makeup applied on the outer corners of her lashes, to name a few. So I push up the bottom lids, which give her that slight squint. I've already angled the brows upwards and made the pupils oval shaped. I should also mention, if you want to work on parts of the eye individually, turn on topology. Otherwise, you can uncheck it and it will move everything all at once. Almost forgot, let's create one middle lash by extruding one of the middle faces, shrinking the end down and loop cutting it in the middle, then curving it out. You only need one or two of these middle lashes. One final detail, let's knife in this nose tip and assign a dark material to it just so that we always have our nose tip visible, even when the main outline is not revealing it. I moved the eyes a little further apart and then just played around with the colors. There's a socket shadow, a dark color for the top of the eyes, a light highlight color for the bottom of the eyes, a red color for her makeup, and yes, these are all on the mesh directly right now because there are no textures yet. And I have it on a shape key just so you can see the totality of all the changes I made to get up to this point right now. But more importantly, from the mesh view, we can see that the edges do maintain quite decent spacing, even with all the shifting and moving around of the facial features. So that's just to give you some peace of mind that this base structure should be reasonable enough to create most face types. Now let's just close up this head mesh before we have some more fun with it. But while it's open, let's quickly make the mouth box by extruding this loop, pressing H to hide the corners so that we can conveniently select these top and bottom edges and move them up and down to create that separation. Then Alt H to unhide and move this mouth box into place, creating a placeholder material for the color of it, adding a few loop cuts and just closing up the back quickly. This part doesn't need to be too detailed or specific, it's just there literally to have the back color of the mouth when it opens. Now let's finish the rest of the head. Starting with the top of the forehead, let's just extrude that and scale it down. Let's do one more merge at this point because it's getting a little crowded up here as it was scaled down. I extrude and loop cut the top and sides first, then solve the corner like this. It's gonna be all wrinkly and shaped weird, that is fine. This can easily be solved with the smooth and grab brushes more later. I extrude the side of the head now and place it in shadow, giving it a temporary shadow material. Merge down a couple verts on the side, scale it down slightly, add a loop cut, and let's do a quick ear structure. I'll dupe 3 verts from the side of the head and start off with this 4x4 with rounded corners, then use my knife tool to separate each corner section into 3 triangles to round it out. Let me quickly straighten this out. Let's use scale along x-axis until it's flat, then extrude that. Then let's loop cut this in the middle, scale that up. Then select these 3 verts in the middle and push them inwards slightly. Now we have an ear that does have a little structure, but we'll mostly be detailing it with the texture once we get to that point. I puff out the back of the ears a little, then I merge it into the side of the head, matching it up to those 3 original verts that we had. Now some of them do this thing where they have this one thin row of faces right where the ear starts, and it indents ever so slightly to separate the front and the back of the head. So let's create that and join that up with the ear right there. And one thing I've seen in Wuthering Waves is they cut out this area. It's a triangle-ish area on the bottom of the chin that meets up right here at the end. And the purpose of this is that it would have a darker part, a darker shadow in this area of the chin that's directly under. Plus it helps with the silhouette from the profile view, because as you'll see, the shadow area will help define the jaw. So we've added the darker material. This is a little too dark, we'll tweak it later. I created the neck loop here as well. Not too many loops, not too many verts on the neck. So let's extrude that neck loop out, do some more triangle merge downs near the front here, and we will finish up the side and the back of the head. Now again, this is one of those parts that I don't have a specific formula and exact number of cuts. It really is just a nice little puzzle mini game. And just like I showed you earlier, I do the easiest stuff first. So this long strip that goes along the back of the head and connects with the top. So let's connect them like so. We got a cut in the middle here, and then we can loop cut it. Just try to match it up with the number of cuts on the side as well. Curve it out, and that knocks out a big chunk, but again, it's gonna look crooked. That's okay, we will smooth it out later. Let's connect these parts, and now we're left with the 2 corners. In this case, it's kind of annoying because the amount of edges don't match up. So I'll take a second to analyze the bottom corner as well as this top corner, see how I can close these up. And so for the bottom, I'll just shift this over to the side and cut it an edge, just like so. Now we can delete this edge and just put a normal face in there. And for the top corner, let's just use a triangle to close it up. And now in sculpt mode, let's use the grab brush as well as a smooth brush to take Baldi's wrinkled mess and make it all nice and smooth. I also use the relax tool on some of these edges to polish it out. Now for some final touches and things to consider. We've had a very limited time with this model, but you always want to go in and polish these loops and iron out anything that you see that's uneven. And this will have a lot of messy stuff because of all the sculpting and moving around that we did. But I always do take some time to get everything aligned back up. The edge flow around the mouth is slightly problematic. Let's try to move these a little. Okay, that's slightly better. We could also make the spacing better for the mouth as well. Just small things like that to clean up the mesh. Now here, from this angle, you never want to have something like this. I purposely deleted this so I could show you. If you ever have something like this, you need to cut it in. This needs to be cut for the continuity of this edge. Because if you don't have that clean, straight vertical line or edge, you could have issues like this, and you don't want that. This right here is pretty weird. So let's just cut across. This should be fine. And that has given us slightly more control of this upper like cheekbone area. And of course we have the solidify outline. I just have it on the outline of the head usually. I won't have it on things like the parts of the eye because I would put the outlines on the texture itself. So I'll assign all of those parts to a group, which then I exclude from the solidify. And I'm not gonna make a whole new hair for this example, but I'm just gonna bum a hair off of the current model that I'm working on, just so we could get an idea. Yeah, we got Temu Red Rose. But yeah, that's a huge texture and lighting diff. That's something that Silver Palace does really well, and we will definitely have a dedicated video for deep diving into the textures as well as the shader setups for these type of characters. Then I just tweaked it slightly and put on Uno. Yeah, that's pretty much it for now. This is the one I did for my original model. I think it's a little cleaner. The only problem is I didn't record when I was making this one, so that's why I had to go back and remake this video for you guys. This one I think got really close to the mesh density of the PGR face model, but oh well. Here's how I handled under the chin, and there's the ear. I did the hairline as well. The only last thing mesh-wise is the hand tutorial. So these are the updated hands. They're quite simple actually, but I'll have that maybe by next week. And that would be the entire base mesh complete. Then we can start working on texturing and making a full character outfit. Then all the good stuff like rigging, animation, exporting to game engine. A bunch of stuff that we're gonna try with this project. So stay tuned. Thank you as always for making it here to the end. You're actually the GOAT if you made it this far into the video. And as always, happy modeling and have yourselves a good night.